So this footnote is about some effective strategies for communication. Just a quick content warning that there'll be some mention of physical abuse of the sexual nature, and perhaps some other difficult situations that communication techniques might come up in. So, in case you didn't know, I'm no psychologist.
You're not?
No, believe it or not.
Okay.
So, I'm going to rely on an article that's written by a psychologist.
I'm just going to eat some chocolate while you do that, so I'm like, to keep things light in my brain.
Yeah. So, just I looked over her article, and it covers a lot of the things that I actually find useful through my years of learning these strategies from professionals. And considering what we went over in communication about certain particular situations, she has a specialty in healing from sexual trauma. So I just thought quite topical.
Cool.
But I just was going to go over her, like, these 5 techniques, 5 strategies. And she's saying rather than actually relying on one certain communication technique for everything, step 1, check the context. It might be more effective to use different strategies at different times.
Yeah.
You need to have a look at your environment, see what's going on, and assess how your recipient is feeling. This is all by Laurie S. Katz, PhD. So, yeah, like, don't start a non-violent communication method of communicating if the other person is not ready to receive that type of, like, direct request or to hear your emotions. Which, I mean, he did say in that book that it's not always appropriate or needed to go through all the steps out loud with the other person.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, there's different ways to approach these things. Maybe it's not the right time. And, yeah, like, maybe the things you want to talk about aren't right for that person either. Then you got to check your emotions. Like, are you in a heightened state? Are you being triggered right now so that you're not in a place to, talk about the subject without getting further triggered? Yeah, it's just you need to be in the right place to have certain discussions, and sometimes the most effective communication at the time is, I need a bit, can we come back to this?
Yeah.
And hopefully someone will respectfully accept that. Step 3, or a third point, what is your message? Is your message clear, or are you sending a mixed message? If you're saying I'm fine, but your body language is saying that you're upset, you can confuse people.
Yeah.
And sometimes I personally definitely find it better to, while I'm feeling emotional, move away and think over what it is I really am trying to say, or what I really want to convey. So, yeah, like, I am not the sort of person who on the spot can really quickly clean up my thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts running everywhere all the time, as you can tell right now. 4, pay attention to how you package your message. this is what I was saying before about that flowery language, like being able to tiptoe around it, even when I am following that kind of like, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I need, and this is what I'd like from you. Step, which they do in nonviolent communication. As I said, I always start mine as well with an acknowledgement of their position or how they might be receiving things, etc.
Yeah.
But it's important to package that message in a way that they're not going to feel blamed, accused, or threatened. And this is kind of that as well, pragmatic, nonviolent communication, where even if you are feeling quite like angry at that person or whatever, it's not going to improve the situation by giving them that message at the time. You don't need to tell them all of how you're like perceiving the situation.
Yeah.
Because often that just turns it into a fight.
Yeah.
And this is what I've learned in things as well. Like, safer to focus on how you are feeling using an I message, such as I feel hurt, lonely, etc. When you don't answer your phone, leave dishes in the sink, etc. So it's just what you personally have control over and the actions they took that affect you directly. And I've found this very helpful in a quick way of being able to assess whether what you're about to say is going to be helpful or exacerbate things.
Yep.
If you're starting with you do or the like way you do things, it's generally not gonna make things more communicative between you.
It's not gonna land well.
Yeah, exactly.
It can be alienating
And,
and
like,
get people's defenses up.
I mean, this is just being diplomatic as well. Like, sure, if you have been wronged in some way, you don't feel like you should have to be there doing all of these, like, techniques to make them feel better.
Yeah.
But it's not always about getting justice. Like, it's about making things as good as they can be.
Yeah.
And also, that's why you need to check your emotions, and maybe just walking away is the right thing at that time. And being a good listener is the last point. Making someone feel heard is always going to make them more receptive to you. Well, I say always. A person with actual empathy and an ability to relate to other people. There's some people in the world that you're never going to manage anything with. Being able to understand other people's feelings, read other people's feelings, and having that active empathy definitely helps you to relate to other people and to communicate better. I actually take it another skill that I have learnt that has helped me a lot is there's different ways to interpret exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You could assume the worst. You could assume the best. Or you could just assume the silly outcome or the funny outcome to, like, break the tension. And using those methods, like, I have managed to really improve my general perception of the world. Like, now when I get cut off in traffic, I often am just like, I guess they're running late for something, you know.
Yeah.
And it just, like, chills my whole life out. I don't even care if it's real or not. It makes my brain happier.
Yeah, it's super helpful.
And when listening to people too, trying to take what they're saying in good faith to begin with, even if there's a little bit of doubt in the corner of your mind, leave that for analysis, you know. don't jump in immediately with that defensiveness, because you can't, as soon as it becomes defensive, you can't continue the conversation. The conversation has come to an end. It's just now a tit for tat sort of fight. Yeah. So if you both keep that kind of open, positive, compassionate view of what people are saying, you're more likely to hear each other and actually come to some sort of middle ground, some sort of solution, than if it just becomes a fight.
And you're right, it's importantly, like, all parties involved have to be on board.
Exactly. Communication's not a one-way street. Doesn't matter how good a communicator you are, if someone's refusing to listen, they're not going to hear. So yeah, that's just a little, there's probably so much, there is so much more out there. It's an entire field of study. But that's just a little taster, seeing as we've had this whole episode of, like, some things not to do.
Well, thank you so much for that, Mika.
No problem, Leslie.
Bye.
Bye.